depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street. There's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. You know, the air is unfit to breathe. Our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't...
Hello?
There's Dave. What's up?
Hey, Tari. We are streaming, if that is acceptable. I kind of bombed in here without a lot of advance notice.
Awesome. Here, let me disable the volume on the stream so...
Yeah, I've made the same error.
Haha, you hear echoes, echoes, echoes!
Oh no!
Crazy delayed echo from the past.
I am not infallible.
Yeah, well, join the club. I hope you guys are having a good week.
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, back at work, doing the grind.
Good deal. All right, well, everyone, welcome to the Thursday Night Chat. I'm going to talk to you about some stuff. And later on, if you're good, I'm going to show you how to draw a circle in perspective. Because I have to do that a lot, and I'm not very good at it yet. So maybe if I teach you how to do it, I'll get better at it. But I guess first, I'll kick off with some questions from the backers that they had. And then, yeah, if you guys have any, feedback or if you have other questions you want to ask, just jump in and we can do that, too. All right.
Sweet.
So first we have, which culture are each of Andruna's districts based on? And the short answer is stereotypes. But let me go and look at the map, and I can talk a little bit about each one. Just for anyone that's maybe new to it. Dreamworld lore. There's the map. Oh, also, random news. I did some minor website updating, and now there is a link to the Lost page on marriage over here on the Dreamkeepers page. So if you guys want to know about Dreamkeepers, Dreamworld marriage rituals, I finally got that back up, so it's linked from the actual webpage now. But anyways, Ruskol, alright, get ready for it. It's cold, it's stoic, the people are wintry people. It's based on a little country, goes by the name of Russia. Russia. Again, the directions of all these were just, I wanted to have them, really distinct flavors. So they're basically inspired by stereotypes, but then as we go and, move forward in the storyline, we get to develop the details and things kind of become more unique. Calypso was inspired by sort of Italian, Mediterranean, sort of ideas, especially because I wanted to have a lot of waterworks, I wanted to have a lot of canals, and that would also help because there's, the water transportation system that goes through all of Andruna, so we have to get that water and the water pressure from somewhere, so Calypso I thought would be a good source for that. Norvendire, I was thinking, I don't know, I just liked castles and crenellations, and so I wanted to draw a lot of castle-y stuff, and I was like, let's have that be Norvendire. That'll be sort of the district that has a very chivalric kind of feel to it, kind of a little medieval. Igrath is from there, if that gives you an idea of the personality. Theophanes, I really like the Greco-Roman architecture and sculptures and statues that have a religious connotations, so that's Theophanes. Kojiki, I think it's a little more Japan than China because look at that coastline. They've got to have some Japanese stuff going on and lots of fishing and things like that. So that's Kojiki. Margate, I think Margate's closer to New Jersey than anything else. So that's Margate. And then Talocan has got the Aztec and Mayan kind of feel to it. So for anyone that was not terribly familiar with David's random thoughts when we were putting together the base ingredients of the Andruna map, that's kind of what I was thinking back in, 2005, 2006. So, next question is... no, I got them up here, Liz. But if you see any questions in the chat when I get to the end of the Patreon questions, we'll go to those too. So what can you tell us about the religion Extolo? And the answer to that is... right now, not a whole lot because it is plot vault. But we are going to learn more about it, so since it's going to pop up in the story and there's going to be more details, I think it's best to just kind of let the story take the lead on that front. Can you talk about what the Indigo's history is, their family, how did they become members of the Troika? I can a little bit, but that's kind of in the same category of plot vault. I don't know if we're necessarily going to show something in a graphic novel flashback, or if we might devote some prelude time to the Indigos. But Yeah, so I guess the answer is no, I can't talk about it because we're probably going to do some storyline about it, and it's just better to actually put it into the story because it's more entertaining and it's the best way to deliver it. Because otherwise, if I could just talk about all the cool stuff and it had the same effect as making a comic out of it, I could save tons of time. We could finish the whole series in like 20 minutes. All right, got 2 more Liz, and then I'll be okay. Liz is making gestures. What does the stream want?
Oh no, I was going to read these to you instead of you going over them.
Too late. I'm looking at them.
Please stop.
Do you want to read them to me?
I would like to read them to you.
All right, Liz, read the questions to me. I can't see them anymore. Oh no. Where did they go? Where did the questions
I was
go?
curious to see what... Hey. I was curious to see what flowwood seeds, black market fermente, and other illegal or hard to acquire items cost, and what's the comparison to CCA approved sources?
Well, especially when it comes to flowwood seeds, the black market stuff and the CCA approved stuff, they're just kind of different stages in the production pipeline. Because there's not a lot of flowwood around Andaruna, they kind of get it all from the northern area where like the quote-unquote bandits are. So most of it comes through black market channels, and then, you know, there's a few bribes that change hands, and then bada bing, bada boom, it's officially approved, Andaruna CCA approved merchandise. So I haven't actually sat down and thought of like an exact price or a cost. Ballpark, I would say they're pretty expensive because it's a high-grade construction material that is extremely versatile, and they have to import it. So a flowwood seed, I don't know, just ballpark, I'm going to say bare minimum, a flowwood seed would probably cost like $500, maybe closer to like $5,000 if we're using contemporary USD for a basis of comparison. Because, I mean, it's like, if you want to build a house, you just have to set up a framework, plant the seed, make sure the wood grows along that framework, and you've got, you know, not a totally finished building, but you have a really solid structure to base it off of. So, yeah, I would say, based on the size of the flowwood seed, maybe between, like, upper hundreds to, like, mid-thousands would be the cost of a flowwood seed, which is also why they're probably a pretty lucrative item for black market trade. All right, next question, Liz.
Can you talk a little bit about what DK sailing technology and vessels are like? Are they similar to any period of sail in Earth history?
I can talk a little bit about Andaruna sailing vessels and technology. And we'll just start by talking about Grunge Boat, because that's the one that I've drawn the most. So Grunge Boat, it's a big thing. If you do notice it has a couple of masts on it, so there is some sail power going on. But Grunge Boat has something that, if you look at the different pages, I think you see a little bit inside there in volume 3. It has this big wheel on the side of it. This big wheel is on the side of Grunge Boat. In fact, I can probably just go to my reference picture and give you a better picture really quick here.
You're doing a good job, though.
Yeah, I'll go back and draw because that's fun, but I at least wanted to show people a good version of it. Swatch, character sheet, settings. Yeah, there we go.
No.
And now it'll take like 30 years to open. Oh well, back to the drawing. So it's got this big wheel on the side here, and it's not just for looks, it's not just cosmetic. It actually connects inside to a spring motor, basically. So they got a lot of spring technology in Andaruna. Here we go. There, it's in color. Ooh, color. So Andaruna, like, one of the things with their technology is we have a lot of things driven by springs. The guns use springs. We have the waterway has like spring lifts and spring-based elevator systems. So this water wheel on the side, this surface is solid, so it's not the most efficient design, but in here these things are kind of shaped almost like a propeller, and there's a drive shaft that goes in there, and there's some kind of a motor or engine where there's a compressed spring, and so you can't get constant power out of it. But if you really need a burst of speed for some reason or another, and Grun's ship used to be essentially a whaling vessel for, you know, whale equivalent creatures, where they would harpoon stuff out of here and then they'd try to like kill it and tow it in. So but if something's pulling you too fast and you need to keep up or your boat gets swamped, you could push a button right here and the spring would be disengaged, and then boom, this thing would start turning and you would get some power right there on the side of your boat. And once upon a time, Grunge Boat did have 2 water wheels so that it wouldn't just go in circles like a broken toy. But the days when Grunge Boat are not broken are long past. Grunge Boat is now broken. Very broken. So that is the short answer on Andaruna shipping technology, I guess. Is using Grunge Boat as an example is they have a lot of sail stuff. Most of them aren't really designed for like super long distances. The sailors in Androna tend to keep track of the coastline. They don't really like to get out of sight of the coastline. So there is some sail stuff, but I also want to have some spring-based motors and engine systems. Possibly even something where you can have like a little dealy-boo up here that like takes wind power and slowly cranks, and then as it cranks, there's a ratchet inside where it can, over time, actually recharge and retighten a spring, so then you could engage like the spring-powered drive again. So you could use your spring drive up, you could basically motorboat around a little bit, and then over a couple of days with the wind turning this thing, you might be able to have another shot if you juice it up again. Alright, Liz, question from the stream. Fire away.
Any divisions going on in Troika?
Are there any divisions going on in Troika? I'm going to say that is Plot Vault. Keep reading the Volume 5 updates. So, yeah. It's fun because when I, like, way in the early days when I was designing the story, I didn't necessarily expect to have internal divisions like that. But then when you take the story forward, you have to kind of let events unfold the way that you think they would, and not all the characters have the same set of values, not all the characters are going to agree to go about things in the same way. So it just kind of became inevitable that there was going to be some divisions, and some of those divisions could, minor problems might emerge. So there's some divisions in the Nightmares, there's some divisions in the Shock Troopers, and in the Troika. So kind of seeing how all these factions collide and play out is one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the storyline as we go forward. Alright, that's all we got for right now. So I want to get some coloring in tonight, so I think, moderators, do you guys have any questions or any thoughts that you wanted to toss out there tonight?
I think you were saying that you wanted to do a tutorial of some sort?
Yeah. So I'm going to get started on my tutorial about how to draw a circle in perspective. Whoa! And that is not it. That's just the announcement. So we'll delete that. We'll get rid of that. We don't want that. We don't want it. We don't want it. We want the real legitimate tutorials. So here we go. How to draw a circle in perspective. And the key to starting out is, let's start out in bluish green because it's pretty. First you draw a square, and first of all, you don't draw it in perspective, you draw it just normally. You get a nice little 45-degree angle going on there. So first of all, you draw a square, and to make a circle inside of a square, it's pretty straightforward. You just you make an X, and that helps you find the center of the circle. I'm sorry, square. So boom, there's the center. Then you do a vertical, you do a horizontal, and you can imagine from here, it's pretty easy to draw a circle in there. So you got a circle in there, and you know you're going to hit right here, you know you're going to hit there and there, and then you kind of go, whoa! So sometimes it helps to have a little more structure than just those 4 points, especially if your circle is like large or what have you. So there is a way to construct exactly how to draw a circle in this, but it takes forever. So I usually use the shorthand technique. And the shorthand technique is you eyeball this line right here. Let's put that in blue. So you eyeball this line right here. And what you do is you divide it into 3 equal parts. So you basically just divide it into thirds. And you go ahead and you do that for the other ones too. And this is just kind of a rough technique, so it's not super precise, but it at least helps you get the circle with a little more guidance. And then when you draw your circle, what you do is you make sure you hit these points, and you also hit just on the outside of the 2/3 mark on those diagonals. So you hit just on the outside of that 2/3 mark, and that will give you a pretty decent approximation of a circle. And I'm not really good at drawing on this little tablet, but you get the idea. So yeah, there we go. Draw a square, you X out the center, drop a vertical, drop a horizontal, get the 2/3 marks, and then just on the outside, you got a square. So I think you can probably see where this is going, and that is going into perspective. So to draw a circle in perspective, because it's really weird, you just draw a square in perspective first. So let's start out with a square right here. If we're going to do perspective, we kind of need a horizon line. We need a nice little vanishing point so we can kind of get a feel for the way things are. And in my perspective drawing class, we learned that to draw a square in perspective, you basically just have to fudge it. Now, obviously when you're drawing in perspective, if it's flat, if there's no perspective, the side is going to be the exact same distance, the exact same length as the top. If you're drawing it in perspective, the top is not going to be as long as the side if you're just measuring with the ruler on the piece of paper. So you got to make it a little shorter. So yep, you guesstimate what you think a square looks like, and over time you might get a little better at it. Hopefully you get better at it than me. And then you just go about your business. You exit out. When you exit out, you get the center, no problem. And then when you get the center, you can easily do the vertical and the horizontal in there. And then you just go ahead and you do that nice little 2/3 mark. 1 2/3 there, 1 2/3 there, 1 2/3. And then it's time to draw a circle in perspective. So using our little guidelines, the circle needs to hit here, at the horizontal points, at the vertical points, and just outside of the 2/3 marks. And then you just have to freehand in that circle. It helps if you kind of get the direction of the perspective line when you're doing it. That'll sort of give you the momentum to get it angled a little bit in the right direction. So, and this is another thing that, like, if you practice more, hopefully you'll just wind up getting a little better at it. Sometimes you have to fudge it a little bit. But yeah, so we generally then have a circle in perspective like this. And what that'll really help with is, let's say that you want to do a cylinder in perspective, or like a tire. A tire is even better. Well, the far side of the circle, you can't just take this exact circle and, you know, copy it over here precisely. Because if you do that, in fact, I can just show that more easily using Photoshop Black Magic. If you do that like this, it's not really going to be in perspective anymore, because that's not how the circle would go. Because as you move that square over, it's going to continue to follow that horizon line, so your circle's not going to be like that. So what we got to do is we got to draw a second circle, or a second square in perspective. So we're going to take, and we're going to just move these lines along like that, because that's how you move something to the side, is you just, you know, you move it to the side. There you go. And if we want our circle to be landing right about here, this is a real thick tire, I guess, then there we go. Then we have to go and we have to hit that vanishing point. And I guess then we'll take it up at the corners. So yeah, wherever that horizontal hits that vertical, you take it up, and then boom, you have to hit that vanishing point again. And it should all line up, you know, this line should go through that right there, and that's all nice. And you can already see, like, our circle that we moved over doesn't fit in that square at all. And that's why if you just drew it in like that, it would look really wonky. So you gotta do your perspective stuff again. So we're gonna just walk through it again. So you get the idea by now, but it always helps to kind of see it a couple times, get a little practice, and then you can see what the end result looks like if you bear with me. So we got our horizontal, our vertical. I try to roughly divide this up by 2/3, and the more weird and perspective-y it gets, the more the 2/3 rule is really more of a guideline. It's not like extremely rigid. Although one thing that should be happening is the little 2/3 marks should actually be lining up on their own perspective lines, actually. So that might help me out to get those 2/3 lines a little more on point. So that's the thing, is when you start constructing things in perspective, you often find that you can construct everything in perspective, and your drawing very quickly becomes filled up with tons and tons and tons of lines. And that's normal, especially when you're learning. That's very normal to get just tons of construction lines everywhere. And then that's why you want to draw with maybe a blue line pencil, maybe a much lighter pencil, or like a harder pencil like an HB or something. And then over time, as you get more experience, you'll be able to get some of the same effects with less construction lines, because you're gonna have it internalized the more you do it over time. All right, so this circle is very tall, very narrow, because we're looking at this thing almost straight on at this point. And you can see if it moved any further over here, we would be looking at it straight on if it was right there. So there we go. Now we have two circles in perspective. They're the same circle, the same size, just one is closer to the center line of our horizon point than the other one. And then you can connect them and make a big, gigantic, fat tire. And let's say we want to put some treads on this tire. At this point, if you wanted to go nuts, you could construct a new square for every single row of treads. But that would probably cause you to kill yourself, so let's not do that. At this point, we are pretty good, because we got this arc out here. So we have a sense for how the circle's arcing over on that front. And we've got this arc right here. And so essentially as you go, you might want to start in the middle and have an arc that's like about halfway between those in terms of like how much it flexes. So over here it's more straight, over here it's more curved, and then you just interpolate those arcs as such. And so because you did all the work, you did all your homework on the left one, you did all your homework on the right one, you can kind of fudge it on the middle ones and put some tire treads in there. And yeah, you can do a barrel roll. You can do all kinds of stuff. Do a barrel roll? I'm not doing a barrel roll. I don't even know how to do a barrel roll. Like, what am I gonna do? Rotate the entire canvas? No, that's kid stuff. This is a serious tutorial. All right. Anything else? While we're on the subject of perspective, I'm gonna do another brief thing. It's just a handy trick to know. So, this is just a nice little handy trick, and that is how to multiply a square in perspective. And that sounds a little goofy, but I'll show you what I mean, and you'll pick up on it real fast. So let's say that you got a horizon line, and, here's the horizon line. Perspective is all over the place. We've got perspective out the wazoo. Too much perspective. We love our perspective. So the conundrum is, let's say you've got like a square, and because you can build a lot of stuff out of a square. You might have a square here, and we'll just, again, the only real way that my teacher told me is you kind of have to guesstimate what you think the square looks like as it rotates. Sometimes it helps if you imagine a door, and the door is like, a perfect square when it's like this, but then when it rotates back in space, then it goes back in perspective. So sometimes I imagine like a door rotating if I'm having trouble eyeballing a square. But so the problem is, let's say we have this square. Let's say that this is a fence, and each one of these verticals is a fence post. And these fence posts are very well constructed. They're all equal distances apart. Well, how do we do that? How do we make them equal distances apart? Because if you literally make it equal distances apart, with a ruler, that don't look right. And at the same time, it's like, well, is it going to be like... So there is a way where you can estimate equal distances receding into the distance with total precision, and it's really easy, so I'm just going to teach you how to do that. First thing we got to do is we got to find the center of that square. So there it is. You X out the center, and then you have the center. Now from the center, you hit your vanishing point there. And then what you do, let's see, I probably should have gave myself a refresher course on this. I think what you do next is you change your color to red or orange in case you're screwing it up. And then you go from a back corner, could be the top, could be the bottom, doesn't really matter, and you draw a line through the point where your halfway mark hits the far side of the square. So like that, only I missed. Gotta estimate with Photoshop here. There we go. Basically like that. So you draw a line from the far corner through that midpoint, and wherever it lands along this perspective line, that's where your next vertical drops. And from there, you can just keep on walking it forward. Back corner, midpoint. That's harder to do. There we go. And then we found the next vertical. Boom, it drops. Back corner, midpoint. I kind of screwed that up. Back corner, midpoint. There we go, close enough. And the next vertical drops. And you can just keep on doing that, and you walk yourself forward in perspective, and each of these distances is the same. So if you have, like, let's say you have a building and you need the windows to be equally spaced. Let's say, again, you have like a fence. You need those fence posts with their little like glow orbs on top. They need to be the exact same distance apart. That is how you get the exact same distance apart. And while we're doing this, let me just point something else out. This is introducing an idea just organically called the special vanishing point, which you don't necessarily often hear about. Because if you look at these orange lines going up, you'll probably notice that they are converging somewhere up here. In fact, if you go from the center, I wonder if they're converging on the center, but they are converging somewhere, and wherever they're converging up there, that's just called a special vanishing point. I bet it is around there somewhere. Yeah, because if you moved this fence post all the way to the center, then those orange lines would be converging on the center. So yeah, what you have there is a special vanishing point. So if you're ever doing like a sloping rooftop or something, let's say that your goal was not necessarily to make equal fence posts. Maybe you had like a sloped roof of some sort, and you wanted to have that sloped roof be in the foreground and then another one in the background, and so on and so on. Because you would notice as it goes back in distance that the angle would change, and so the angle changing goes to a special vanishing point way up there. So that's just a little side bonus, is you can multiply out a square to get equal distance through perspective, and that also introduces us to the idea of special vanishing points. Because everyone talks about 2-point perspective, where it's like, you know, you got maybe a cube, and it goes to this vanishing point, and then the other side goes to like this vanishing point. Boom, 2-point perspective, right? But what if you got this cube, and what if someone just decides that they're going to nudge it with their foot? What if that cube is like sitting on a pebble, so the front edge of that cube comes up? Well, if the front edge of that cube comes up, these vertical lines are no longer vertical, so what happens? And what happens is a special vanishing point. So you got your 2-point perspective, and if you want to rotate something within that, a lot of times the verticals here will snap away from being vertical if you rotate that cube enough, and they'll actually turn into a whole new vanishing point on their own. So here we'll have like sort of a cube that's tilted up a little, and you notice when you tilt it, we get a vanishing point up here, and we're also going to get a vanishing point down here. So that is how, if you really want to, you can take, because a lot of times when people start drawing perspective, they draw illustrations and they draw rooms where everything is at a perfect 90-degree angle. Every single illustration, like whoever lived in that room, they're manic obsessive. Everything is at a right angle degree to everything else. Like the lamp is a square, you know, everything is just completely rigid. And if your character is very fastidious, maybe that's the look that you want for a particular setting. But it really helps make it seem more alive, a little more messy and real, if occasionally you take something and you tilt it a little. Like maybe that sketchbook is not exactly square on the table, lined up flush with the edges. Maybe the laptop is tilted over this way or that way. And you don't have to always do insane construction lines on every item in your room or in your setting. But if you know how to do it, then when you get big items that are difficult to grapple with and it just doesn't look right, then you can sit and you can break it down, and knowing how it's supposed to work really helps a lot sometimes. So I think that is our tutorial on circles in perspective, and we also jumped in and we did a little bit about multiplying a square in perspective and tilting with special vanishing points.
So we have a question.
All right, question from the chat, Liz.
Question, do you think Bobby would make a great underwear model?
I think Bobby would make the best underwear model. The reason being because his body has about 5 times more colors than the average. Like, you look at Calvin Klein. For God's sake, most of those photos are black and white. Puts me to sleep. I hate it. I want to tear those things down. What I want is blue spots, red spots, yellow, preferably neon colors. So yeah, without doubt, Bobby is the optimal underwear model. Unless we could get like some paint buckets and splash him up a bit more, I guess that's the only way I could see to improve him. Yeah. All right, and it is 9:30. This was fun. I kind of want to keep it short and sweet and try to get some progress on art tonight before I go to bed, because I was running a bunch of errands today and I didn't quite get as much coloring done as I wanted. So, stream, any final questions before we sign off? And moderators, do you want any final say on anything before we sign up for this week?
So now that we've mastered how to draw a circle, when will we have a tutorial on how to find true love?
Tutorial on how to find true love? That sounds like fun. I guess we'll have to deconstruct what we did, Liz. All right. First, you lose at GoldenEye. Not sure exactly where it went from there, but we'll figure it out. All right.
And anyone watching the stream or in the Discord chat, feel free to message me or any other mods. You know, if there's things about the streams that you know you'd like to see in the future or something. I can't promise anything, but you know we're still at experimental stages, so we want people to have fun. And David, you are legally required that these people have fun. So just hit me up, you know.
All right.
So we can do.
I get it. They have to have fun. I'm drawing the boobs. Okay, Liz, you said there's a
Alright.
question?
How long does it take to create how long does it take to create one graphic novel page?
One graphic novel page. It varies, so I'll just be general. Usually it takes me about a day to do the blue line sketch, another day to do the polished pencils. Probably, does it take you like maybe a day to do the color blocking, Liz?
Yeah, I'd say.
And then it takes me, I would say most of a day, not a full day, but most of a day to do the shading. So, and that leaves room in there for like errands and eating food and like going to the gym and stuff you just got to do. So I would say on average, a graphic novel page will take about 4 days of production.
And then what's the name for the string ball drugs that you show in the comic?
Oh yeah, I swear I wrote that down somewhere. Do we call them poppers?
I think so.
I think we might call them poppers, but yeah, it's like there's like a ball and then there's like a string and there's another ball, and they have that there so that way if you have seizures when you're in the middle of getting high, you don't necessarily swallow the ball and choke to death. That's why they have a different ball on the other end of it, so you can pull it out of your mouth if you have seizures and start foaming at the mouth. All right, and this was a fun stream. Check it out. Totally boobs. Okay, we're gonna go viral.
Are they in perspective?
The boobs, yes. This perspective was intuitive. This perspective comes from years of practice. Why, you can chart the curvature. There's 15 squares on every surface of these boobs. It's actually tesseracted out with triangular polygons, and it's a mesh. And if you wanted to trace this in like ZBrush, you would get a perfect flawless form. So this is what everyone should be aspiring to. All of this. And I think on that note, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit. Hopefully it was a little bit entertaining. And we'll be back next week with some more questions and some other goofy stuff that I'll show off. And hopefully we have fun. Have a good week and have a good night.